How's it going, everybody? C-RadTV back here in our video, and welcome to another Detroit Lions 2024 NFL Draft Preview. So in the last draft preview, we took a look at the top offensive lineman prospects in rounds 2 and 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft. And in this one, we're now going to shift to the defensive side of the trenches and take a look at the top day 2 defensive lineman prospects in rounds 2 and 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft. Because I think the Lions can get better at edge rusher and get another edge to complement Aiden Hutchinson. You know, try to take some pressure off him so Hutchinson can get some pressure to the QB so Hutchinson doesn't get double teamed and held every fucking play. But yeah, we're going to go through some of these prospects here and see who the Lions could potentially target on day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft. So yeah, let's go. Starting off with defensive ends, the first one we're going to go over here. Hailing out of Penn State, standing 6'4", weighing 246 pounds, we got Adisa Isaac. So for Adisa, his strengths, he's a bendy pass rusher, can dip under tackles, maintain his balance through contact, closes quickly in pursuit, bursts to build up speed, makes him hard to escape in the backfield, an incredibly flexible lower body, allows him to attack angles that most defensive ends can't. He uses his length effectively when he initiates contact. His size athleticism should allow both him to play in both a 4-3 and a 3-4 formation, whatever makes him feel comfortable when projecting him into the defense. Holds his own when he drops into coverage, stays active with his hands, shows diversity with his approach, impressive inside counters, keeps blockers from sitting down on the outside rush. In terms of the weaknesses, though, his narrow lower body and a lot with the legs of a linebacker. Lack of mass gives him trouble when asked to set the edge or play through blocks. Gets too aggressive with his angles, will overrun opportunities in run defense. He was rotate out regularly, will likely have teams wondering about a snap count going forward. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Arnold Ebiketie of the Atlanta Falcons. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game for sure. Definitely, I think, someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Kansas, standing 6'5", weighing 245 pounds, we got Austin Booker. So for Austin's strength, outstanding frame, ideal length for a defensive end, has pretty room to fill out his body, should be able to hold up to 270 pounds once he gets into the league. Outstanding first step, got him home against Illinois' pair of draftable offensive tackles this year, if you want to watch some tape and film on him. Outstanding high school basketball background, shows in the way he moves laterally, can create angles as a pass rusher, able to contort his body, can work his hands from difficult angles, outstanding closing speed when he has to shed and chase the play, coordination between his hands and feet, unique for his size, slippery mover when he cuts back on counters. In terms of his weaknesses, though, too reckless in pursuit right now, will throw himself out of place with bad angles. Only 1 year of real experience, it's shown in the way he approaches the game. Developmental curve, it will be on the longer end. It could limit his value as a first contract player. Too easily, he's redirected or slowed up by tight ends. Seem to gas out and lose some of his energy later in games, so some scouts may worry about his stamina. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Arden Key of the Tennessee Titans. Overall, there's a lot of positives to take out of his game for sure. Very, able to do a lot of things right, but of course, a couple red flags with with not much lack of experience. And, of course, some stamina, Definitely some red flags. I think definitely a gamble. Someone that could pay off a couple years down the line. In a window, I think in the Lions Super Bowl window, I think they could afford that. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of West Michigan, standing 6'3", weighing 275 pounds, we got Marshawn Nealon. So for Marshawn, he's the prototype strength defensive end, because while he isn't a natural bender or agile player, he has bricks in his hands, knows how to set up blocks, can bring strike, and can set the edge and joust for angles. In terms of strength, violent and angry pass rusher, never lets off the gas in the middle of a rep, creates a ton of power when he lands his punch, was able to jar Syracuse's tackles with his approach for any footage and tape to watch. High motor player, outstanding in pursuit reps. Twitch is shocking for a player with his size and body type. Never content when blockers have their hand on him, will seek to create angles at all times. Brutal matchup for tight ends. Quick to recognize the release, can shoot for his hands up the bat passes. Bounce through contact, rarely gets knocked out of plays. Has the ability to play both inside and outside, which will help him stay on the field. A physical wrap-up tackler, has good technique. Also listed as one of the big small school studs of this draft class because he's a power rushing wrecking ball. Likely won't turn into a high-end producer, but he has a few holes to his game, and he could be a very reliable starter in this league with his potential. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he can be a bit reckless with stacking and shedding blocks due to his aggression. Overcommits to angles, puts himself in bad spots as a run defender. Segmented movements, high pad level, it could create more issues as the level of competition improves. In terms of his NFL comparisons, he's been compared to Viliami Fehoko of the Dallas Cowboys. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game. A lot of positives, not that many weaknesses. I think this is somebody to definitely keep an eye on here. It could be a good compliment for Hutchinson. Alright, so the next player we're going to go over here. Hailing out of Michigan, standing 6'5", weighing 272 pounds. We got Braden McGregor. So for Braden's strengths, slick hand fighter, has both quickness and violence in his approach. Athletic specimen, has been dropped into coverage despite his size. Explosive inside counters will keep the offensive tackles from sitting down on his outside rush. Natural rusher for both the 2-point and the 3-point stance. Diverse set of moves, gives blockers fits when it comes to anticipating this play. Uncorks jarring amounts of power in his punch. Tackles with plenty of aggression, rarely slips off his attempts. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his athleticism is a functional, doesn't elevate his game, no. More of a try-hard technician than a high-ceiling prospect. Short arms, tall frame, an odd pairing for the position. Gets seen up in the run game at times due to his length differential. Overly eager to spin, can turn away from blocks as a run defender. Untimely, inconsistent with a stack and shed. Instincts against the run vastly different than against the pass. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions, who, by the way, also went to Michigan as well. Overall, though, there are a lot of things to like out of his game. Does a lot of things right. Maybe someone to keep an eye on here for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Oregon, standing 6'3", weighing 285 pounds, we got Brandon Dorless. So for Brandon's strengths, excellent lateral quickness, body control, effective at creating pressure on stunts, lightning quick with his hand usage, always fires away, searches for counters to what blockers give him, able to dip and slide through gaps like few defensive linemen can, power generator, outplays his weight class as a bull rusher, has elite swim move, fits nicely into his strengths as a pass rusher, comfortable regardless of where he rushes from, hard to dodge once he zeroes in as a tackler, rare agility both in space and in dealing with blocks. Terms his weaknesses, though, tweener lineman, blurs the lines of defensive tackle and defensive end. His lack of mass, it shows up as a limiting factor in the run game. Average length, it can lead the game mauled against big tackles. Effort waxes and wanes throughout games, so a little inconsistent there. His motor will raise some red flags for some scouts and coaches. He'll get washed out easily once he loses the leverage battle. Terms his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Logan Hall of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game, a lot of positives for sure, and really rarely misses as a tackler. You know, if he can win the leverage battle, I think someone to keep an eye on here for sure. And the final defensive end we're going to look over in this video before we move on to defensive tackles, we got hailing out of Washington, standing 6'3", weighing 270 pounds. We got Braylon Trice. So for Braylon's strengths, reliable tackler, excellent grip strength once he gets his hands on a ball carrier. Short area agility, twitch allows him to quickly create different angles or react to what opponents do. He bullies tight ends, imposes his physicality on small blockers. Power had impressive flashes against Oregon's Josh Connerly when he got into his chest, if you want to watch some tape and footage there. Hard to move off his spot once he sets his edge. In terms of his weaknesses, though, frame's going to be a turnoff for a lot of teams. His sub 33-inch arms leads to missed tackles, gets covered up by long arm offensive tackles. Too much of a bullet in a china shop rather than a technically sound pass rusher. He's awkward and clunky when he tries to run stunts. Uses his shoulder and body too often, can create his angles, and it puts him in bad spots. Too easily knocked to the ground or blown off course by sharp angles in the run game. Lateral agility doesn't match his hands and foot speed. All muscle rusher with minimal finesse and bend to his game. He's also been listed as a player that could disappoint in this draft class, because even though he was highly productive at Washington and he's a refined pass rusher with smart hands, he does lack the ideal length to threaten NFL offensive tackles. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Carlos Basham of the New York Giants. Overall, though, there's a lot of things to like on his game. You know, very reliable tackler. Does a lot of things right. You know, a couple things, though. Question is, though, will that length issue matter in the NFL or not? Time will tell there, but maybe someone here to keep an eye on for sure. Now moving on to defensive tackles. The first one we're going to go over here. Hailing out of Missouri, standing 6'5", weighing 293 pounds, we got Darius Robinson. So for Darius, he's your prototype tackling defensive tackle because of his near 35-inch arms, excellent athleticism, makes him a terror in many areas of the game. His tackles are particularly difficult to evade regardless of a runner's agility. In terms of strength, rare physical attributes, nearly 85-inch wingspan, body type will translate easily to the NFL level. Versatile athlete, has the range to play either defensive tackle or defensive end. Could easily add weight and play bigger if a team desires. Use its weight to easily detach from blocks when the ball comes by. Experience as a stand-up rusher makes scouts feel more convicted about his athleticism. Long arm move, polished and hard to counter. Overwhelming tackler, rarely evaded. Tools and moldability will make him appealing regardless of the scheme. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he loses momentum quickly, lacks top-end speed to catch plays from the backside. Plays with high pad level will have a hard time staying low as a run defender. Plays with a narrow base, limits his side-to-side movement as a result. Hand usage is dependent on his length, has some tightness at his hips and ankles. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Trayvon Walker of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Overall, a lot of things to like out of Darius' game, does a lot of things right. Very physical, too. Think somebody to keep an eye on here for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Texas, standing 6'1", weighing 308 pounds, we got Byron Murphy. So for Byron, he's the prototype explosion defensive tackle because he was the quickest defensive tackle in college football in 2023. Instant penetration against centers and guards. First step will be matched by many NFL linemen. In terms of strength, explosive first step, good lateral movement, makes him hard to catch out of a stance. Hands are extremely quick, creative, both in his entry and in his counters. Plays low to the ground, uses leverage effectively in the run game. Unleashes a shocking amount of power in his bull rush. Ball of energy when he pursues runners. Gets skinny, can slip through gaps with ease. He'll hustle to get a piece of every tackle. Has good awareness, can track the ball well from any situation. Push, pull, rip moves. They're a nightmare for lighter centers. In terms of his weaknesses, though, modestly sized defensive tackle without ideal length to shed blocks. Lack of mass that lead to his rush path being derailed against bigger linemen. His small wingspan gives him trouble when he reels in athletic runners. Lacks the body type to be moved out to defensive end at all. He'll be overwhelmed early in his career against NFL size and strength in the run game. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Maurice Hurst to the Cleveland Browns. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game. Does a lot of things to fight right. It gets very explosive right off the snap, which will be crucial to either stop the run or get pressure to QB and force him to make a bad throw. Definitely, I think someone to keep an eye on here for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Michigan, standing 6'3", weighing 298 pounds, we got Chris Jenkins. So for Chris's strength, dynamic athlete, rare twitch throughout his body, displayed lightning quick hands heading to his rushes against Penn State for any tape and footage to watch there. Easy movement generator, will blast back interior linemen with both his upper body power and his lower body drive. He stays engaged from the edges of the play, won't take his foot off the gas until that whistle blows. Effort and agility keeps running backs from escaping him. Very slippery pass rusher, can slide through gaps, make himself a smaller target. Works overtime with his hands, won't stop chopping. Rangy enough to kick outside, can play defensive end. Tracks the ball throughout blocks, won't get lost in the shuffle. Flexible lower body, gives him a pad level advantage. In terms of his weaknesses, though, on the small side for a defensive tackle, he'll get covered up at times by big blockers and double teams. Constantly rotate in and out of his this year. Lack of top end length and strength led to some tangles when he tries to stack and shed. He will be labeled as a tweener by some teams. His tools have never transferred into production during his time at Michigan. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Devontae Wyatt of the Green Bay Packers. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game, though. You know, definitely I think someone to keep an eye on here for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of LSU, standing 6'6", weighing 315 pounds, we got Mason Smith. So for Mason, he's a prototype run defensive tackle, very good at stuffing the run because of his excellent wingspan. Steady feet, can stay balanced, and he's the top run stopper in this draft class. terms of strength, enormous frame, great length, dwarfed most of his opposition, even in the SEC. Long strider, can cover a lot of ground for a big man. His mass combines with his long arms can create plenty of knockback on contact. Physically overwhelming even against top competition. Possesses a great swim move that most blockers can't shut down. Effective penetration ability, rare for his body type. Regularly drew double teams against Missouri for any tape and footage to watch there. Has experience rushing off the edge. Has some surprising bend around the corner. His range as a tackler allows him to stick out arms and catch ball carriers without fully breaking off blocks. In terms of his weaknesses, though, disproportionately small hands. He'll be a topic of conversation for most teams. His height works against him when he tries to stack and shed. Gets too narrow at his approach. Occasionally will get over his skis and lose his balance as a result of leaning too far. His hands start to slow down and rocket tension later in reps. Effort's one of his lesser assets. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Javon Kinlaw of the San Francisco 49ers. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game. Very good against the run, can stuff it. Very big, too. If he can start putting more effort in and put that aside, I think this is someone to keep an eye on here for sure. Like a lot of things out of him. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Texas A&M, standing 6'2", weighing 320 pounds, we got McKinley Jackson. So for McKinley's strengths, disproportionately long arms for his height, two-time team captain, so leader of men. Easy power generator, can create movement both with his contact and his leg drive. Twitchy hands, feet for a bigger man. Leverage and strength, he'll be functional as a nose tackle. He's able to out-muscle most opponents in one-on-one situations. Easy block shutter due to his upper body strength. Range of pursuit's outstanding for his bulk. Ball rush walks through most small centers. Consistently shocks blockers with his punch. Able to two-gap while he keeps track of the ball. Rarely knocked off balance and maintains his energy late in games. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he'll likely be on the lower end of snap counts for the position. He comes up short on tackles, can lose guys at the end of his reach quite often. Pass rush plans, somewhat one-dimensional, hinges on his leverage and power. Frame and style of play may pigeonhole him into playing only zero tech or one tech. His ceiling as a pass rusher's bit will be average by NFL standards. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Fedarian Mantis of the Washington Commanders. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game. Does a lot of things right, and a leader of men, too. I think this is someone the Lions will definitely be keeping an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Clemson, standing 6'4", weighing 290 pounds, we got Rook or Horhoro. So for Rook's strengths, power profile, high quality, able to generate backward movement at the point of attack, requires strong anchor to stand one's ground against him. Arsenal of pass rush moves more refined than many college defensive tackles that should translate well to the NFL. He closes in on QBs well, strong enough tackler to turn pressure into sacks with consistency. Force of nature once he gets in the backfield, as seen in the game against NC State for any tape footage there. In terms of weaknesses, though, run stopping could use some work. Needs to establish a consistent tactic to take up space, make lateral moves to fill holes. Doesn't move side to side well, results in him just being a straight line rusher. Could be difficult to use consistently in the NFL for that reason. Could stand to add some mass in the league at a skinny 290. Not quite a tweener, but on the borderline. Balance is inconsistent, ends up on the ground occasionally. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Quinton Jefferson and the New York Jets. Overall, a lot of things to like out of his game. A lot of power, too. Does a lot of things right. And can get pressure to QB, too, which is something the Lions need to do better at. You know, I think definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure, especially maybe in passing downs. And the final defensive tackle, the final defensive lineman, the final player we're going to talk about in this video, hailing out of Texas, standing 6'4", weighing 362 pounds, we got T'Vondre Sweat. So for T'Vondre, he's the prototype strength defensive tackle because he unlocked a new gear and looks stronger than ever at 362 pounds. His weight will be a discussion point for some teams, but there will be no fucking doubt about his strength. In terms of his strengths, prototypical nose tackle body, great rate distribution and bulk, tremendously strong run defender, run game redirector, which is the equivalent of a defensive mountain, rarely gives ground against double teams, uncorks plenty of power in his punch, can generate some momentum, can collapse the pocket as a bull rusher, booming hitter who will hurt opponents when he lands on them. Great at disrupting passing lanes, can get his hands up during release. Efficient with his hands for a big man. Quick to react as the ball passes by. Won't be late to fight off blocks. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his size impairs his movement, makes it difficult to create consistency as a pass rusher. Could have weight concerns from some teams. He's unable to change direction without significant gear down. Non-factor outside a phone booth. One-dimensional player, will be off the table for plenty of teams. Athletic profile could lead to a lot of volatility from one draft board to the next. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to John Jenkins of the Las Vegas Raiders. Overall, though, a lot of things to like out of his game. Very big body. Definitely someone that could stuff the run for sure. Definitely, I think, someone to keep an eye on for sure and to eat some double teams and take some pressure off Hutchinson. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up for this Detroit Lions 2024 NFL Draft Preview video. But yeah, quite a few interesting prospects to keep an eye on, especially for defensive end. Since in terms of the D-line, edge is more of a need than defensive tackle. Like, defensive tackle are pretty much set on there with Ali McNeil and DJ Reader. But, it never hurts to have too many defensive linemen in there, especially some defensive tackles in there, too. Especially since the trick game is always won and lost in the trenches. But, yeah, definitely some interesting prospects to keep an eye on here for sure whenever the Lions do decide they want to address edge rusher in this draft. But, yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up here. We got one more video we're going to do for day 2 of the draft before we focus on the day 3 of the draft. And for day 2, it's going to be on defensive backs and safeties, a.k.a. corners. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up for this video. That's all I got to say. Hope everyone's a great day, and I'll see you all whatever I make next. I'm out.